Blessed love and peace, Rastafari. Respect and honor to His Majesty Haile Selassie I. Respect and honor to Her Majesty Wazir and all thanks and praise to the Most High Elohim Jah. Yeah, we got story time today because on the way today I see the battery is on E. So I have to make myself presentable here, you know. So it is. Oh, he's grooming like a chimpanzee on display. How primitive. Continuing on. Puffy, yo, I done dropped some weight, then I done gained some weight. And I'm like, yo, what I do gain some weight? Maybe peanut butter, maybe bread. Because I haven't been doing the junk food, ain't got them methodologies at this moment. It's been strictly rice and beans and some bread, occasionally some flavor, but that's pretty much it. Actually, to be honest, nah, some indulgences, some restaurant visitations in recent weeks. Pizza, adaba, that and then rice, okay. And oil, okay. That's and then pour fat. So back into the thick of summer. It was getting lean and mean. Well, at least mean or lean. One of them joints. Anyways, continue on. Story time. All right. So this is from just a few seconds ago and now minutes ago. We've opened up a vegan cafe actually. It's actually doing rather well. We're receiving repeat clientele, even intergenerational clientele, parents and children. So, getting some favorable responses, reviews. Have a very, very elite clientele. It's membership only. Those with wings. It's a terrace cafe. Nice view, open air. So yeah, members only those with wings. Occasionally some four-legged buggers. I had to deal with a four-legged bugger. I shared that story recently. Who arrives. It was very bold and brave in arriving, but then gets a little bit stuck because we're on the third floor. It's a third floor terrace cafe. So brave getting here, but then getting a little bit bewildered and how to get out. So there was a little bit of assistance necessary in that particular instance, which is why this is wings only, sir. This is wings only, dear lady. So there's some smaller buggers who arrive here and get a little bit dizzy when delving into the lounge area of the cafe. So oftentimes there's a necessity of staff helping the dear smaller buggers with wings out and continuing on in the day, and that's what the story is. So actually in the adjacent facility to the vegan cafe, earlier today, again just a few seconds ago, as I'm watering the plant, one of our hosts does security consultations, additionally things like that. Very nice plant, very strong, formidable plant. That's another story though. We don't have a name for our cafe either. That seems just kind of silly. Our clientele know it by location. Although, a little bit slow today, to be honest. But on the menu, we've got peanuts that I prepare myself, at least today. That's new on the menu, or at least the self-prepared. Oh, wait a minute, we got buggers. They heard the words gone out. Peanuts prepared by yours truly. We got quinoa at the moment. Previously we have some millet, but now it's quinoa. We got some bread. That, to be honest, the bread is seems to be less popular amongst our clientele. Very selective in the bread selection, which is very interesting. Very selective in the selection. What else we got? We used to have cracked corn, but at the moment that's off the menu. Seasonal, these things. Dried cracked corn is just it's not the easiest to come by here in Ohio. Boom, that's extreme irony, but there it is. What else we got? Bread, rice. Yo, rice. Okay, so here's the thing with the rice. It seems to be that, first of all, certain clientele just less interested in the rice, just to be honest. Less interested in the bread either. It's strictly like, yo, peanuts, millet, maybe quinoa. Quinoa, we're seeing how the quinoa does. This is the first day we shared the quinoa on the menu. But so that's certain clientele. Other clientele is less persnickety, and it's just like, yo, this rice is decent. This bread is decent. Well, again, bread is kind of we've had hit and miss with the bread. But here's one thing we learned, and this is honesty, without trying to do any shade. This is just facts. We initially do share some basmati rice on the menu, and that does rather well. Very popular. Cleared out every day. Cleared out. Then just because, again, with our methodology, we do some jasmine rice, beautiful jasmine rice, and now the jasmine rice is just a different type of rice, and it's a somewhat moisture. There's at least my methodology of preparing it, and my skills are very modest, but it tends to be further moist, sticky, clumpy. Again, my modest skills in preparation, and so perhaps that might be a little bit further difficult for our clientele to access, digest, and emptying. So I tend to just leave it there. Oh, you didn't like the rice we shared? No. So if I separate it, then particularly the youngsters like the jasmine rice. When it's separated, it's easier, flake by flake or kernel by kernel. That's the water that I hear at the moment. I'm going to tend to the water. Tend to the water. Tend to the water. It's the water dance. That's the reference. Old school reference. Middle old school. Because it's not old school, but it's my old school. So it's middle old school. But anyways, for those who know, tend to the water. The water is tended. So we continue with the story. The youngsters seem to have an affinity for the jasmine rice, but the thing also is that the jasmine rice tends to, even when separated, then it gets crispy when it's left out for an extended period of time. So that's less favorable, accessible for our clientele. And so, anyways, that's some of the experience. So, but again, that's the cafe. Get back to the story from today. So as I'm visiting with our security staff and counseling staff and the wise advisor staff, and additionally the plant, I see in the window in the adjacent facility a bee, a buzz bee. It's like a worker bee, a little bit, actually, to be honest, a little bit different type of bee than usual, a little bit smaller in terms of length, but then a little bit squatter. But anyways, just sat there on the screen. And the thing is, the window was closed. Like, the window was closed, so it hasn't been open. So how did you get in there? What's going on? So fairly earlier in the day. And it just sat there on the screen still. And I think, okay, I help it out. So I finished with consulting with the kinfolk. And then I get to the window, open up the window. And I can, as I look further, it looks, wait a minute, the bumble may be a little bit stilly. So, because that's often the case, like an insect gets caught on the screen and then eventually just, it graduates in the graceful way. And so when I like knock on the screen, plonk, and completion. So when I look at the bee again, I'm like, wait a minute, it's a little bit still. Well, maybe it's a little bit late, or maybe whatever. So I continue on with the process, and open up the window, open up the screen halfway so that I can go plink plink, and it can go down and get some fresh air and freedom. And so when I do the plunk plunk, First, when I move it, it doesn't move. It's still stuck on the screen. It's in the kind of like state of like just ready to just be like blah. Here it is, or blah. Here it is. So I give it the test of punk, and then it goes dunk, 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 dunk onto the ledge. But in doing that, it kind of like and it visits. It lands on its back, and so it like just like that. And then gets on his right side. But still, after that, it's just like it's stuck still. Because if you ever been in that situation of just like done, nothing further. It's not a pleasant place to be in, presumably, because if I'm talking like this, I've been in near experiences like that. But it's just like whatever. It can be difficult, even when everything is, all the solutions are there. It can be difficult to even just take on that thing. You see that wavy wave? Yo, that's a art gallery exhibit right there. Because that's a refraction, something or other from the water dish of the for our clientele. So it's a little bit. If you get a rug, lay it on the ground, and then get like a yoga mat, and then just lay flat on the back, relax, look up, and just like look at the image. Now, this is not like a worship type thing. It's just like a relaxation, meditation type of thing. Because water is very soothing. Light in proper joints is very soothing, and so to see that refraction, the natural, and additionally is the thing. And then when birds visit, and additionally it adds to the elements. So there's a notion of establishing a gallery exhibit, an art gallery exhibit based on that, like having a pool of water along a window, like with the southern exposure. I've said this before, and reflecting onto a plain wall along the room, having the rug in clear space in the room. Rug, people can get a yoga mat and just find their space on the rug and just kind of lay back and look at the imagery along the wall from the water, reflection, and all them functionalities. So that's what's you're getting a freebie right there. That's what that is. The bee, boom, 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 onto the ledge. Fizzle, fizzle, fizzle. Exactly. That's the exact scientific term. Fizzle, fizzle, fizzle. And then gets on his right side, but then stillness. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I can just continue on my way and presume that the bee is going to go off. And then additionally, but then again, like once a being is in that kind of state, it's like it may need a little bit of encouragement to kind of like continue on in this life. Let us be so presumptuous and biased in that way, but guided properly, yes. So I think, you know what, it's not that much of a bother. Let me help a little, because sometimes what can be very helpful in those situations, and I've been in them situations, parchedness without hydration. So I say, I don't know how long that bee's been out there sitting in the soleil light. It might be just for a few hours or whatever. It might have been for the past day, however long it's been. Water is miraculous. You know that already. So I said I'd get some water. I was already sharing the water with the plant brethren. So I did a little bit of water onto the ledge, and I think, well, let me not just like inundate the kinfolk, the buzzing kinfolk with this. So I tried to do it on the side. There's a little clump of bird giftings, and so I think, well, let me just pour it on those bird giftings, because maybe the bee can partake of some of the berry essences and whatever that the bird provides accordingly. Because bird giftedness is a very lucrative entity if you look into the economics, to be honest. Energy, and bees have an increasing access and knowledge about how to utilize that type of energy. A lot of insects, bees maybe less so, but again, it would look like berries, so that might be proximate to what the bee needs. Anyways, that's what I do. Pour some water on that. It gets a little bit further than what I was intending, and so a number of wee bit of streams go from the water pouring onto the bird giftings, but then a little bit to the side to where the bee is, and then onto where the bee is. And then, oh, my bad, but no, it's okay. Maybe we need a little bit of that tough love, kind of a little bit of push. It wasn't a lot, so just a little bit of that water wake up, like, hey, wake up, get up. So when the water reaches the bee, hey, indeed, the bee goes fizzle, fizzle, fashizzy. And then kind of gets away from the water thing and everything, and then just stays still for a little bit. And then it's like, and it's like one of those things when you wake up in the a.m. and you're like, I don't feel like getting up. It's fine, whatever, I'll get up. So it kind of like wakes up a little bit, but then stillness, and then takes a few steps towards the trickle of water. And so let me tell it, oh, it's getting its refreshment now. Oh, it's gonna. And at that point, it gets a little bit selfish on my part. I stay around. I'm thinking, oh yes, I'll stay around just to make sure that the bee is okay and everything's decent. But yo, I want a success story. I want to like celebrate my benevolence and all and altruism and all these other things. Cats don't want to hear, oh, it went fizzle, fung something or other. But people want to hear, oh, this is nice. So I'm in selfish mode. But so I stay there a minute or two, and it takes about a minute or two. Goes onto the water, walk, stop. Pauses at one of the water trickle lines, and then like maybe a minute later, takes a few steps further to the edge, and then stops again at the edge, and then there it is. So that's the story from today. I'm reminded of a call for today, which is dream, awake, and work. Dream, awake, and work. Some of the viewing, and to be honest, like I don't watch a lot of things. Like, all right, here's something else for consideration. And like I said, I'm basically charging up the battery because I'm 2 days past due going up on the mountain. I'm still around the watering hole. So today, if it's God willing, I'll be on my way up back again. Planning to kick around the football a wee bit because this is a Wednesday, Cuyahoga FC, anyway, so on the media front of like viewing, watching, listening to music, watching films, reading books. If I didn't just say that already, what's the other thing people do? They did the TV shows, I guess. Music, films, books. Okay, music, films, books. A lot of times, particularly when we're younger, the thing is like just the newest joint. We want to like do what's trendy. We want to know what's the latest. Be able to be like the first to talk about it, and want to put other people onto it and get credit for that and this, that, and the other. We might be genuinely enthusiastic about a particular type of topic or whatever else. But then after we've seen it, like, hey, we've already seen that one. What's new? What's going on? And to be honest, it's like cultural prostitution. It's like, yo, I already had that one, and then go into another. And that's a very crass example, but no, it's actually very relevant, and it's a very appropriate way of looking at how people consume culture. And so one of the things I share in recent years with kinfolk, because kinfolk, again, people do that either with films or with music or with books. Read this book, okay, no, you can recommend it. I can say I've read it, and I can recommend it to other people and be authoritative about it. But at the same time, there's very little commitment to like what's communicated, and actually there's little intentionality of being committed, because the whole process of production, publication, distribution, marketing, and additionally, and I'm not trying to be shady, because I have some dear kinfolk who that's what their livelihood is, and so I don't want to cast shade on that, but just that methodology is less conducive towards like a sustainable kind of conversation within community, because it's just churn it and burn it and get on to the next joint. And so that translates into our relationships, our communication, and everything else. Turn it and burn it. What's new? So the consideration I share with kinfolk in recent years is the notion of marrying a book, and I share that because many of the people I talk with tend to be the book readers and have recommendations of books. And I'm like, wait, hold up. Like, I got a huge book list, and I don't read things that are written in the past century, because there's little new and little healthy that is worth that kind of, it's like devoted attention. It's one thing to listen to music, one thing to listen to films where one can do other things, multitask, whatever. But reading a book, you want like, that's devotion right there. And it's like, at this point in my life, like, you gotta have like some serious credentials, qualifications, and all them other things, recommendations, letters of recommendation, all that, to have that kind of like thing. So anyways, when people say, oh, you should read this, you should, like, well, hold up, first of all, do you know what I read already? Like I don't read new things I new, but I read things that are old, and I read actually a lot. And so actually, as a matter of fact, before I get into these joints, I will share the book list. So here's what I read every week. How many pages? Maybe about a total of, and see, the thing is this, it's not necessarily a amount of pages, because you can read, for those who are readers, you can read 100 pages like that for certain things, and for other things you can read like 5 pages and it takes you like 2 years. So and it depends upon how much, again, you're invested in actually absorbing what is being communicated, because again, there's some things that are just extremely dense, and so what I read is extremely dense, and I don't give it the type of justice, nobody gives it the type of justice that is warranted, but I do a decent job. So here's the list. I shall show you, Elohim willing. Every week, this is the list of books for years and years and years. Oh, so the idea that I share is being married to a book, and the idea is this: finding a book. It doesn't have to be any of these. Whatever book resonates with. If people are feeling the book, whatever, oh, cool. Commit to that book. Read a portion of the book on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis, but like continue, like commit towards continuing to read a portion of that book, and ad infinitum. I mean, for life. But that kind of like helps us to discern what is significantly meaningful and priority in our lives. Being able to even just identify what book would that be that we would read religiously, committedly. How about that? Just to be married to a book, read it once a week or once a month, but continue. Like, yeah, I read this over and over and over and over again, and that's basically my point. Is that culture isn't something just to turn and burn. It's repeated. Everett, tell the same stories. Oh, I heard this story. Hear it again. Hear the new things within it. Hear somebody else share it. Hear a youngster tell it, and hear something completely, absolutely new. Get a new. That's the nature of culture, because that's what keeps us together. And again, yes, it can be like laborious to hear the same thing over and over again, but that's why we have rituals and cycles and seasons where we tell certain stories during certain periods of the year, and additionally, and so that after a year, it's new after a year. To be honest, it's a new year. You done lived a whole year of life, so you better have something new and insight, even if it's the exact same story, the exact same recording or whatever else. You better hear it in a new way, because for those type of stories, it's quality. So if you're listening to Lit, Churn, and Burn and you don't want to hear it, yes, because it's not quality. It's not quality. It's formula, and it doesn't have that staying power. So that, I mean, if you're looking at food, cats don't often care that much about what cats eat, anyways. But anything, yeah, that's the thing. Being healthy, just in general, like what's that? Anyways, and who am I to say whatever? But I am somebody, and I do know something. So meanwhile, I'll go back to these books. So these are the books that I'm committed to, that I'm married to. That I read for basically over 20 years, the most part of these. Over 20 years, these books. Some a little bit longer than others, but basically, that's I started reading these joints over 20 years ago. And the thing is, when I was reading these books, extreme tenacious experience in life, and these books provide very invaluable guidance in these experiences, because these are kinfolk who go through that same kind of joint and show how to get through it. And so after reading it for the first time from front to back, each of these books, it's like, oh, wait a minute, so now what do I do? Because as I'm doing it, when you're in the book, you're living it and you're feeling it, and you're like, okay, what's going to happen next? But then, like, when you start to get to the end of the book, you're like, oh, wait, no, it's the end. That's when you want to find people who talk about it, find people to talk about it with, and what's the next book, what's the sequel, and everything else like that. So the answer is actually go back to page 1 and do it again and continue doing it. So that's actually what the guidance is Torah in the tradition of Israel. This joint is read every year, the complete reading of it every year. The whole community goes through that experience of the narrative of Torah. And so from that tradition and from that discipline and wisdom, we do the same thing with all these books. We show all the books. So let's see if we can do a shot with all of it in here. We think we do. There's only so much. Alright, well, it's like, oh, it's just there, just a little bit further, Alright, okay. So it's not necessarily visible, and I'm going to do this with my right hand, so that means I'm going to bounce with my left hand, all such dexterity. So we've got it basically here. So right here we have Torah from Israel. We have the Chandogya Upanishads, and then we also have the Kena, the Isa, and the the Kata and the Isa Upanishads that we read, and this is on a yearly basis. There's a portion of these each week I read, and within our community we read, such that by the completion of a year we complete at least one full reading of each of these texts, portion by portion each week. Chandogya Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Tao Te Ching, Lun Yu. These are the four classics, but from here we specifically read Menke. We actually also read the Doctrine of the Mean and the Great Learning. The fourth great book being Lun Yu, which is right here. So this is the Digha Nikaya, and then this is the Dhammapada. We specifically just read the Gospels and the Acts of the Apostles from the New Testament of Christianity, and then the Quran. So I read that on a weekly basis. Those are the books I read, and those are the books I am married to for years. Many of those books have been through continents, been on continents. So, and through the weathers, through the elements, and additionally. So, but wait, there's further. Now, we're also married to these books now. To be honest, I don't read the whole of these books. We don't read the whole of these books in our tradition, but we read a portion of these books every year, at least a portion. And the books at this moment are saying, "Hey, wait a minute, we're not ready. We weren't ready for company. We're not presentable. We got dusty." And actually, to be honest, these are the physical books, but actually what I personally read and what we read in our immediate community is a printing of these books, because just for the sake of accessibility. You see this, it's heavy, so we apportion it just for the feasibility of new. Yeah, we got some guests here. There we go. So the reason why I say this is because some of these are dusty. So like that hasn't been read in the past year. Well, these physical books actually, yes. It's been a minute since these physical books, but the text of these books we read, just a different printing. So, and just for the very fastidious. This is the printing of all those books right here. This is the printing of the first set of books that I shared as well. This is the first volume. There are 5 volumes here. Such a weight gain. It is what it is. So self-conscientious, so egotistical, so. No, that's not the song. It's not so. It's say. That was Paul McCartney and was it? Was it Michael Jackson? Anyways, so I'm just gonna go through this very, very, very briefly in living color. Tommy Davidson, imitating Sugar Ray Leonard. I gotta announce my references here. So, all right, here we go. This is not in order. There's actually a specific sequence. I've shared the schedule of this before, and you know what? We solicit patience and just seeing the dust of these books and everything else like that, because I know that's not the most pleasant of things, but at this point I wasn't obviously planning to share this, so it is what it is, and at this point it's just a matter of being half an hour in this joint. Yeah, okay, still charging, but all right. dusty. Here we go. This again, it's not the exact order, because I said, like the books say, we weren't ready for being president, we weren't ready for company, we're not presentable, So come on, this is fam right here. This is fam. We're okay. Kitab Yagdas from Baha'i tradition. The history of Denmark from Saxo Grammaticus. Digha Nikaya, Haudenosaunee. I'll do this in the appropriate way. This is the Gaya-Nashigoa of Haudenosaunee. Digha Nikaya, whose name is sacred, and Hiawatha. Republic, Plato. It's actually featuring Socrates. We got here, how about this one? I feel like Johnny Carson now. I should know what this one is. It is... What? He's cheating. He's looking at the books. That's okay. It's open book test. Haha. Okay, yes, this is not in order, so... Alright, now, it is the Atavarta. All the way off. And that's just, it is what it is. It's the Corday Avesta from Zoroastrian tradition. I'm going to let that speak for itself. Stumble, we fall down, but we get up. There's another rendering of that one. I have to think about another point. And the complementary of that is also the Zenavesta. And then we have Souls of Black Folk. We actually read the whole of the Digha Nikaya, and we the whole. See where my concentrations are already, because you can't be so sing-songy. These are weighty things right here. So we also, I ain't gonna blame it on anything else going on, but yeah. So I have to I'm gonna have to tone it down a little bit. So we read the whole of the Gaya-Nashigoa in the narrative of Digha Nikaya that precedes it. A narrative of Digha Nikaya that precedes it. We also read the whole of the Kitab Yagdas, and then we read the initial portion from Sri Guru Granth Sahib. I'm showing this like it's visible, but maybe that's... Oh wait, all of this is backwards now. Okay, so alright. So Sri Guru Granth Sahib, and the Sri Guru Granth Sahib is huge. There's 7 volumes. Does it say here? Yeah, there's 7 volumes here. So you see how much volume 1 is. Here it is. There's 7 of these, so we don't read the whole of that, because it takes 3 years to study it in Sikhi. So that's for the hardcore Sikhi. So we read a portion of that, the initial portion. We read some of the stories from Muskogee tradition. We read the beginning portion, words given, from Davi Kopanawa Yanomami. That is just this past week, where we read this from again, Yanomami tradition. There's a rendering of the I Have a Dream speech of Martin Luther King, a contemporary rendering of it. We read the beginning portion of Sunjata. How about this? Rather than that, I'll do it like this. Sunjata. Is it like that? Is that upside down? That's upside down. So yeah, it's reverse. So I don't know if there's a mechanism where people can do it in reverse, but there's that. This is the... It's not the Kalpa Sutra. Tatavarta Sutra. Concentration, your patience is appreciated, presumably. And then also we read a few of the initial hadith according to Bukhari. So these are the books that we are committed to on a yearly basis. The first ones that I show are on a weekly basis. We read the entirety of each one by the end of the year. We read a portion of each of these every year. And I'm trying to think if there's any ones that I omitted. Oh, the Tanakh. We read the book of Yeshua. The first, the entirety of the book. So those are the books that we are committed to, that we are married to. We are married to. And that's all the dust. Some of the youngsters here today. Oh, what's going on, young blood? So, yeah, that's the consideration I share with kinfolk, is that notion, that discipline, that experience of being married to whatever culture that we're vibing with, and know and feel what that's like. Not to just feel the newness of something, but the familiarity and the nuances. How about that? Going from the newness to the nuance of our cultures. And the stability and like the sense of self, and like, it doesn't have to be flashy, it doesn't have to be pretty. And in fact, sometimes we don't want it to be pretty, or it doesn't matter one way or the other. So, because it's here, we feel comfortable. There's that loyalty, there's that constancy, reassurance. Like I said, stability, trust. So that's, if we want that in our lives, if we want that in our relationships, if we want that within ourselves, it's beneficial for us to do that in the things we invest ourselves in, what we listen to, what we pay our attention to, and additionally. So books, music is the same thing. I listen to the same songs over and over. So I have an extensive playlist. And I listen to new songs. I like all music. I appreciate all music, I should say, because it's like, who am I to like something or other? I appreciate all music. I respect all music. All music. All music. Some cats say that and be like, well, yeah, but not country. Or all music. Now, I don't agree with all the lyrics, but like every form of music deserves respect, and it comes from someplace. And when we have enough understanding and respect for the nature of the game, and we recognize we have to have some initial respect for everything that comes from the game, and that game ultimately is Jabata, the Most High. So music is just a form of expression, and if you don't like it, grindy, whatever, understand the nature where it's coming from, and then you say, oh, you know what? There's something right there. So when Cass is rocking out in the next building through the years past, there used to be a band that rehearsed there, playing a hardcore metal. That sounded kind of tight. That drum beat. I can feel that. That guitar. What you talking about? Because I can hear it right now. I don't need to hear the lyrics, but I feel the experience. And so, whatever it is, country music is actually maybe the most honest music on this continent, even beyond hip-hop. Because the thing about hip-hop is that hip-hop talks about the problems. Hip-hop does not talk about the solutions in general. 1% of the kinfolk talk about the problems. The other cats just talk about themselves. 1% maybe talk about the problems. But then that's a niche within the industry. And then even in that 1%, there's less than 1% that are talking about solutions, and it becomes just a cyclical thing where people are like, I can get money, I can make a livelihood of doing this, and have a reputation for being genuine because everybody else is just talking about themselves. But at the same time, it's like they're just perpetuating the cycle, because the industry of distribution and everything, the infrastructure, don't care about solutions and just wants to make money off that. And so even the cats who are conscientious, and I love them all, respect them all, I grew up with them all, I learned from them all, I'm a student of them all, but at the same time there's a limitation. And so anyways, and because of that, there's a dishonesty, and it's may be extremely difficult for 99.9% of the population on this continent to see the dishonesty, like the genuine dishonesty. Cats will just cast aspersion for whatever laws is this, because they don't care about honesty. But for the cats who like live that, once cats see that, it's like, where's the solution, y'all? Where's the solution? And that's where the dishonesty is. So I say country music is, for again, like all the culture is coming from the fakeness the fakeness of the United States and American culture, and in general, this is a pirate ship. It's this is indigenous land. Everybody on here is a robber and doing dirty things. Me doing this and everything on the is dirty. It's bloody. It's nasty, yo. And when cats don't talk about it, pretend otherwise, that's fake. And youth see that. That's why the youth tune out unless the youth get corrupted into it. It's very difficult. So the culture is often a reflection of that, and so it's difficult to be honest. And I'm not better and worse than anybody else. I've got my own dishonesties, whatever, because it's very difficult to be 100 honest in this life. But we continue to strive to our utmost. That being said, one of the reasons why country music is what I consider to be one of the furthest honest music forms on this, because country music doesn't necessarily, from one, people say, oh, it's racist, this and the other. It can be overtly racist. Sweet home Alabama. I just heard this past week. But at the same time, it's being unapologetically racist. Like, this is who I am, and I don't care about this and the other. That's honesty right there. So, okay, thank you very much. Just like Marcus Garvey said with the Ku Klux Klan, you got what you got. We got. We can deal with each other, because at least we know where we stand. I can talk with you. Like, okay, you want to mess with us? Okay, we don't want to mess with you. Let's all right. How do we do that? That's honesty right there. And with that honesty, it's like, okay, there's a lightning of the spirit in that, because even though cats don't mess with each other, at least, okay, you gotta at least respect that. And we can cooperatively not associate with each other. We don't have to be at each other. Like, how do we do that? And that's where the challenge is, because the masses like, oh, well, you gotta get along. And look at me, I'm mixed. So obviously I'm about get along and everything, but I'm also about respecting people and not enforcing people to do other things or whatever. So there's a lot of fakeness that emerges in that endeavor of assimilation and everything else like that. So did we get all that? Is that all that process? We got all that? Okay. You can rewind if need be. But country music is increasingly honest in that respect. And like I said, not all of it's like blatantly racist or whatever else, but at least it's just like, this is our experience. Now, obviously, it's still settler. It's still coming from the imperialistic thing, and a lot of it is sugar coated and formulaic and everything else like that. But amidst the aggregate of American culture, even including hip hop and additionally, there is an honesty. Now, we can talk about jazz. Probably jazz might be a little bit further on the honest level, because jazz, by and large, ain't got no lyrics. So there's no line. It's just, here's the experience. You want to talk about Sweet Home Alabama? How about we just talk about Alabama John Coltrane? Yeah. The Thunderstorm. Yeah, all right. That's honesty. Ooh, that's nasty honesty. But at the same time, even jazz is enveloped like John Coltrane. Beautiful, blessed soul. Peace and blessings be with him. With the chemistry, just to kind of keep sane in society. And so alcohol, heroin, cocaine, whatever. So there's dishonesty of that, because in order to kind of like be that medium of message and the masses, there is that reversion into the Malay of the apothecary. So anyways, love of music, all music. Now, that being said, as I just mentioned, instrumental music tends to be further honest even then, but even when it's honest, again, the experience of the musicians comes out. Fornication, promiscuity, consumption of intoxicants, and additionally, that comes out in the music, and that's influential. Now, that's one of the reasons why religious leaders, very strict religious leaders in Orthodox communities, like, that's haram, it's trife, because there's awareness of the influence even in that type of thing. Because when youngsters get endeared to, even particularly singers, obviously, because there's the charisma, physical attraction, everything else like that. But even when it's just musicians, it can be an intoxicant. Even with Rumi, and additionally, there's an indulgence. So we have to measure. Now, I share the consideration of there's purposefulness within it, and so we have to be mindful. But at the same time, music is how we lift the spirit in dish. I say that regularly throughout the years and continuing on. But it's just a matter of being mindful. So all that being said, when we partake of music, it's a matter of, again, thinking about being how we are committed, how we marry the music, so that we can listen to something over and over again. I gave a formula recently about how to measure music, about like if you can listen to a song on repeat for like 10 times in a row, 100 times in a row, to the point where it's meditative, like you can hear it over and over and over again and it doesn't bother you. That lets you know that there's something like positive, there's something redeeming in that music. If you can't listen to it like 5 times in a row and 10 times in a row and like genuinely enjoy it, it's not just a matter of tolerating it, like you can genuinely enjoy it. If you can't do that, that's letting you know something right there. And obviously some songs, it's just like a different type of energy, but by and large, like if you can't listen to a song for 5 times, 10 times in a row, you might want to be mindful of that. Same thing with films. There are a few films at this point that I watch, that I have access to. To be honest, I have access to the whole internet. So, but that I have like that I can actually like uh, validate or like rationalize or legitimate like spending my time listening to or whatever, because it's similar to books, because it does involve a further amount of attention than music does. And so the films that I watch have to like continue to teach something. And then again, if you can't watch a film 5 times in like a week, or and it's not binging. It's not binging a series, because the series is just the new next episode or whatever. So it's not that. It's seeing the same episode over and over again. You already know what people are going to say and everything else. It's nothing. It's nothing like. Well, I can't say that because that would be a complete contradiction of what I just said before. You already know what's going to be said. You've heard the whole thing before. Doing that 5 times in a row, 10 times in a row, that lets you know the health factor, the health level of that culture that you're consuming. If you can't do that, you might want to be mindful of that. So the films that I watch at this moment, I can get introduced to new films, again, but it's kind of like books. It takes some doing. But the films that I watch at this point, I've seen probably at least 20 times entirely, and then obviously portions here and there, because then it becomes like reference points of like an encyclopedia or something like that, or like a map. It's like once you see a film, you know what you want to look for. You know what you need to hear, or you know what what you feel like hearing, because there's something in the recesses of your cognition, that tells you like, yo, listen to that part right there. That's what you're thinking about right now. So you go back to that thing, you just want to see that scene again, and then you just kind of like listen to it or whatever, and you're like, okay, and there it is. So that's eventually at some point in life, we pretty much figured things out. It's just a matter of remembering it, and remembering ourselves, and that's again part of the purpose of rituals. So the films that I have, I used to have a number of films on iTunes, maybe like 20, 25. I used to have a stack of films, international films particularly, just again to get that message. I listened to the languages from a number of different cultures. I gave those away, particularly when I was preparing to leave the country. Even before that, I gave them away. And then, so all those are gone at this point. I would still listen to them. Oh, then also as I progress in my spiritual path and become increasingly mindful of like the appropriateness of presentation, I see that how many of the films, and even international films, indie films, and stuff like that I watch had just a lot of explicit sexual content. That just is. I would think, well, I'll edit it and I'll just do it. But at the end, it's like, and so even though there's so much beneficial message and learning that it happens in the film, at the same time, it's at a very extreme cost. So I'm still working on that kind of methodology of discrimination of what to watch and what not to watch. And in the meantime, like I've let go of a lot of favorite films because of that, and even just like little things like a woman breastfeeding in the open in public, and it's just like, okay, that's nature. So people do this and the other, but when it's film, no, people know better. It's not a private thing. It's not an innocent thing of just like being in the wild and this. Nope, because when we know what the film industry is, and then the what's involved in learning about films, and additionally to put that on, there's just tremendous amount of corruption. So that whatever's presented, even if the people themselves aren't involved in that culture, those that are involved in sharing that imagery with others know about that and do that intentionally. The influence and corruption, and additionally, and it is extremely innocuous. There was a scene in Fight Club when they talked about the brother who did the film was the film projector, and he would like splice just very brief clips of pornography in the films, just to get the reaction of the crowd. And the crowd, it was just so quick. The crowd didn't know what they were experiencing, but then they would have some extreme, particularly the children, have some extreme emotional response just in subliminally seeing that splice of the pornography. And so that's not like that's not some anomaly. That's a regularity. Pedophilia when seeing children naked, babies naked, breastfeeding, women breastfeeding, children kissing children, all of that is pedophilia, and it becomes normalized. So even when it's just a brief scene, when it's cute, it's endearing. Yes, it's very emotive because that's the power, that the energy that children share, and it's part of the miracle of children. But at the same time, there's a sacredness that's being violated in that experience as well. So even when it's like a beautiful film and it's a beautiful message and everything else like that, when there's the element, it's particularly when it's a beautiful film and there's a beautiful message, when there's that element within it, it becomes very difficult to extract ourselves from the manifestation, the adverse manifestations of that in this life, and extract ourselves from watching it. So I'm still working on doing that. And I'm talking about like mainstream films. I said before, La Familia, or Mi Familia is one that I just very explicit. There's one from Thailand called My Girl. There's another one that I used to watch, even Gandhi, the film Gandhi. There's just a very brief episode where at the beginning of near the beginning of the film, after he comes back from South Africa, he's going through the streets, and then there's a brief focus on a woman breastfeeding a child in the streets amongst this melange of people in the streets. So it's a very brief thing, and it seems like very picayunish, but when we recognize like part of the history of Gandhi is pedophilia, when he sleeps in the same bed with his nieces. And if I recall, again, this is according to his own autobiography, and I can't say specifically definitively, but I seem to recall that. And he said he didn't have sex with his nieces, but still sleeping in the same bed. Again, that sounds like Michael Jackson. So that's problematic. And for that scene to be in there, maybe he says, "Oh, it's just happenstance. So it's just coincidence." No, first of all, it's not a coincidence. I mean, it's like a maybe 1 second. The camera kind of goes from the crowd, panning through the crowd, and then kind of focuses on the mother with her child breastfeeding, and then it cuts to another scene where a bird is eating a flower in a very decadent garden, where the bourgeoisie of Indian society is talking about Indian nationalism. So it's a very brief part of it, but it is intentional because the camera focuses on her, and it's like, well, it's innocuous. It's like, it's a beautiful thing. It's going from one feeding to another, feeding this and the other. Because these kinfolk, is it Sir Richard Attenborough, or one of them kinfolk of England, honor and respect, peace and blessings, extremely intelligent and knows the influence, the endearment, Academy Award, and additionally the influence that comes from just that. Because when like I said a number of years ago with Mi Familia, like, now that was just completely blatant pedophilia, where the boy is butt naked, full exposure, dancing on a table in front of the actors in front of him, making a display of himself. Extreme pedophilia. And the thing is, the film is a beautiful. I have to qualify myself now. The film shares a beautiful story, an intergenerational story about kinfolk migrating from Mexico into the land of the Tongva, and has A-list actors, up-and-coming actors during that period, 30 years ago, almost 30 years ago. So like it's high caliber talent, and additionally, so there's a knowledge about what's going on, and it's skillfully put together, and it's very charismatic. But at the same time, when that scene is there, and the boy, it's a corruption of the poor boy, and I don't want to be like patronizing or whatever, but it has an effect. The young brother who played the son in the Bicycle Thieves, Biciclette Ladri Biciclette, in the classic Italiano film from near post Second World War, like 70 years ago. He talks about how now there was a scene when he was urinating in the streets, and that was an extreme concern in the 50s because people were less drunk at that point, saying, "What you doing? What you showing that for? Like, what's that? It's not necessary. What's that all about?" it's intentional. Like the boy was peeing on the streets. Now they didn't show anything per se, and so it's it's innocuous. You don't see anything. But again, it's the corruption of the mind. And again, 70 years ago, kinfolk was further sober and be like, nah, the United States banned it. And people say, oh, the United States is just so judgmental and religious and this and the other. But compared to European standards or whatever. But no, you don't need. What's the purpose of putting that in there? It's corruption. And people say, well, but it's authentic. It gives you a sense of like life and this and the other. That's what people do. No, don't show that. It's a 5-year-old, 6-year-old boy. No. And now the actor, I'm told, after that, years later, as he goes, because he experiences challenges in life, just from the notoriety and everything else like that. But the thing about Mi Familia in that scene, I've said this before, I've shared this in the joint before, but is that for those who think so, it's a cute scene. He's acting out, he's lashing out because of the angst that he's experiencing in his family. He's calling out the gringos who are invading or in the family house or whatever. So it's kind of like that stress relief or whatever in that part of the story. And so it's just this cute thing that children do, this and the other, and it provides authenticity. And no, it's corruption. And the other thing also is that it does provide energy. It's an endearment. The actors actually, to be honest, feed from the innocence of the child, and that is displayed and carried into the interactions between the actors and the dish. So children are such a blessing and provide such a genuine energy, and additionally an endearment and charisma. That is like better than gold when it comes to film, because that's part of what endears an audience to the story is like the authenticity and additionally, and children provide that. So when a child is presented in such an exposed and vulnerable way, the audience is endeared to it, the actors are endeared to it, and then it just becomes increasingly popular. And so even when I talk about it being like a beautiful story, that's being influenced by all of those elements. And so when it's normalized, then when it happens in actual life, when children are sold, when parents sell their children for sexual favors, and additionally, it's just a very nuanced extension from what is already mainstream accepted within society. So that's the problem. That's the atrocities that are being committed. So anyways, and it's difficult to let go of it. It's difficult to just like separate ourselves, because particularly when we've already established years of nostalgia and connection and everything else like that, it's tough. So even and then you say, well, it's just this little part and this, that, and the other. It's very difficult, but we know better. And one way or another, we experience the consequences accordingly. So anyways, all that being said, wow, 20 minutes ago. Because of that, as I become increasingly aware of this and awoke to it and sobering to this in my own path, and I ain't perfect, but when I become aware of this, I can't, So I let go of a lot of the films, even after, seeing them 20 some odd times, and afterwards, like, okay, you know what, I just can't. And I would rationalize to myself, like I said, I'll just like I'll go into iMovie or whatever this joint is right here, and I'll edit it and just remove that scene from it, whatever else. And obviously that takes a lot of labor. I don't even know how much it's available to do that, maybe, but it's still like, is that actually the solution, or else is it just a matter of like letting that go and finding some other story that is increasingly healthy and honest accordingly. So anyways, I harp on that enough. These are the two joints I listen to now. And again, these aren't perfect either, because everyone has their joints or whatever. But these are two films that I listen to. To be honest, I watch documentaries increasingly because, again, increasingly authentic stories. I think there was something else I was going to say about these films specifically. One of the things that I watched recently, I actually saw this when it was happening. I saw this, I think it was on Netflix or something like that, and it was over 10 years ago because it was the World Cup when it was in South Africa. But I watched that a number of years ago. It's like 6 episodes. It's accessible on YouTube. Like there's a preview for each episode, like 3 minutes or something that shows us. But anyways, it's like a continuation of This is a very skillfully done documentary. Ziggy Marley, Bob Marley's oldest son, is involved in the production of this film. He's actually featured. He does in the DVD joint. He does a over narrative with the director Kevin McDonald in talking about the film as it's happening and giving some further stories and additionally. So there's also interviews with Stephen Marley and Cedilla Marley, the son and daughter, another son and daughter of Bob Marley, including in addition to Ziggy Marley sharing some additional insights. Bunny Wailer provides some nice an extended interview, as does Ada Lee Patch Gray. Lee Patch Gray, is it? What it? No, it's Lee Scratch Perry. How about that? Yo, I'm doing that recently. So this is another thing. I don't think I've seen this 20 times yet. Maybe I watched almost the whole thing. There's 6 episodes. I think they're about half an hour each or something like that. I did watch the whole series except for the end of episode 6. Because, the brother's got to sleep at some point. And the brother's got to go to work, too. But anyways, those are some of the joints. Sound of Music. I'm on the fence with Sound of Music at this moment because there's a lot of reasons why I watch Sound of Music, and Cass might be like, "Wait, hold on, what? Sound of Music? What? Rodgers and Hammerstein? What?" And what would be the concerns of Sound of Music? Well, it's actually, now this is why I'm on the fence, because again, there's an absence of anything I can think of explicitly that is like sexually explicit, because again, it's in the 50s. There's a higher screen of filter about that type of content. But when I think about it, and again, being mindful in additionally, I just think about like there is a particular scene of, well, there is one when a teenage girl kisses a teenage boy, and that's a little bit on the fence as well, because to be honest, the definitions of when adulthood is, and additionally, but that's one concern. And then even any type of kissing on screen, actually, to be honest, is an imposition on the actors, because it's adultery. Like if that's somebody's husband, if that's somebody's wife, even if they're single, still it's like, that's not acting. They're actually kissing. And I talked to a sister a few weeks ago who's in the Screen Actors Guild right here in the village, and she was like, but it's not. There's everybody's. It's not a matter of what they feel towards each other, what the nature of the commitment is to each other. It's not acting. The physical act is like it's done, and if somebody doesn't want their wife kissing somebody else, then that's a violation. If somebody else doesn't want their husband kissing somebody else, that's a violation right there. So, anyways, that's one thing. And again, like I said, I'm still on the fence. So, because I recognize we have to like. Some Orthodox practitioners in different religions say, and it's not even a question. Don't watch that. It's out the door. It's out the window. It's out of even consideration. I am increasingly enveloped in the median of popular culture and traditional experience. So I'm still on the fence on that one, and even beyond just the kissing scenes, and additionally, it's just the whole notion of depicting like the slumber party experience of the children in the same bed with the nanny in the pajamas, and additionally, and again, that might seem like wait, that's serious, Brady Bunch experience. But at the same time, because when it's normalized, the next step is just a little bit further, and then it's like, well, you saw this at Sound of Music and said this was okay, so this is just like that, and then things get further thing. And when dealing with children, it's like, is it necessary? Does that actually have to be there? Now, in Sound of Music, the whole thing is significantly about the children, and that does provide a certain endearing experience in terms of the narrative in the building of the relationship between Maria and the children. But there we go. I've been derelict in my cafe responsibilities in recent days, so the reputation might have been like, oh, they've been slipping the past couple of days, and so now maybe the word is out. It's getting up a little bit because word tends to get around. So, anyways, like I said, I'm still on the fence, and that's just I'm just articulating this as a way of understanding the implications involved. So I'm getting my message of like, all right, wrap up. Let's continue on. You got things to do. All right. Those are the films, and then actually shared the books, shared some music. Well, this is music right here. And this is very accessible for the world because the world already knows about it. And that's another scene in the documentary. Is they do different scenes. They go to different places around the earth: Japan, India, Nepal. I think it was Tunisia, Brazil, and the land of the Guarani. All these different places, and people talk about the local people talk about their love for Bob Marley, how they found out about Marley, in like they go to the favelas and like the hood places in a number of different places. The cast is bumping Kenya, I think Ghana as well, and just talking about the love for Bob Marley, and so it's a nice experience. So that's part of the music joint, and that might be another thing. I'll say this here. How about this? I've reached out to the Bob Marley Foundation, actually the Rita Marley Foundation as well. I've also reached out to the Bruce Lee Foundation, all of whom are mixed kinfolk, families, and clans. And I communicate the consideration of a collaborative project with Bruce Lee Foundation and the Marley Foundations. And there's receptivity to that. Still working on like further follow through and additionally. And so this was an intentionality. I'm just thinking about things or whatever, and I just share this accordingly. But one of the ideas is establishing a pluralism education project, like a book, right? Basically, like an encyclopedia with stories from around the earth, through the auspices of the Bruce Lee Foundation and the Marley Foundations. As a way of just like introducing the one world culture type of experience. There are a lot of ways of people already doing it, particularly like their ventures like Putumayo Music that do world music and additionally. So, but guess what? There's room for plenty room for further projects, and particularly coming from an experience of mixed heritage, and cultivating a library, a platform, a forum. A school, a school, an academic methodology of pluralism. That's like legit balanced pluralism, not assimilationist based pluralism, but like legit from the roots pluralism. And so that's one project of like a book, a storybook that has stories from simple stories. Beautiful stories from around the earth as like an intro, like a reader into that experience. And that's based off of an actual project from 70 years ago, which is the Negro Heritage Library that I had growing up, but wasn't appreciative duly when growing up as a youngster. But it has a collection of poems from the Black experience in the United States, but classic poems from Harlem Renaissance. Henry Dumas, I think, is the Three Musketeers. There's an episode from there. It's illustrated, so it appeals to children. There's poetry. It's very accessible. And then there's excerpts from classic writings, and additionally. And so there's a mix of things, brief, further involved, and further in depth. And it's a nice introduction to Black experience and a reference thing to go through the generations, to share for generations. So the consideration is establishing something like that in the mixed experience, and not just the mixed experience, but the pluralistic experience of just the stories from around the earth, and it being an introduction to the cultures and learning further. Again, some of the stories, maybe some poetry, some Neruda, and some Tay, and some Rumi, and all them joints. So that's part of the consideration. And then one other thing that I have yet to share with the Marley Foundations, because still working on responsiveness on the first joints. Hint, no pressure. But the next one is this, and this just occurs to me on the topic of music. So. Yo-Yo Ma. Yo-Yo Ma is world-renowned musician, child prodigy, played with I was gonna say not Arthur Rubinstein, Vladimir Horowitz. Again, wow, that's 60 years ago. What? Well, he was a youngster. I think he was like 5 years old, so he would only be 65 then, but thereabouts, maybe a little bit older. But anyways, celebrated. He's like a UN ambassador of culture, something like that, at least through the years. So that's basically that a gist of who he is. Oh, yeah, by the way, he plays the cello. I guess I should mention that. So, but a few years ago, like actually, God, 20 years ago, something like that. Actually, over 20 years ago, I think. Anyways, he started a project called the Silk Road Ensemble, and basically, the first project was just like bringing in musicians from the different geographic regions along the Silk Road. From East Asia all the way through Europe, all the way through the Middle East, and additionally musicians from different parts of those regions, and then putting together some songs from each of those regions, and then sharing it as a CD back in those days. Now it's a playlist. So it's done one time, and now I think they're like volume. They've probably done it like 10 times of that through the years. And so the next consideration I share with the Marley Foundation is actually I'm sharing a lot of things with the Marley Foundation right now, just because that's the nature of the Rastafari and the things that we're working on in this side of our circle. But one of the other things is particularly for the Marley clan, the melody makers, and additionally is doing something similar. So the thing with the Silk Road Ensemble is Yo-Yo Ma is like the featured musician because he has the notoriety, he has the pull in terms of the music industry, and also some influence, or at least some credit, some music cred in encouraging musicians to get to participate. So this consideration is like, yo, well, you know what? And Marley kinfolk got some of that, particularly within the Pan-African community, but I mean the world in general, but particularly in the Pan-African community. So the consideration is doing not a Silk Road Ensemble, but like an African Trails Ensemble or something like that. But just basically on the continent of Africa, encouraging, connecting with musician brethren from East, West, South Africa, North Africa, Middle Africa, Central Africa, but the different regions, and then putting it together a CD. And displaying, because Ziggy Marley in the joint African Road Trip talks about his love of African music. The road trip is again about the brothers Rohan, Robbie, and Ziggy going to the World Cup in South Africa and doing a free concert in Soweto. So he talks about his love for African music. So the consideration is putting together a CD where the musicians are featured from the different regions of Africa. And again, it's not like a mixture of every song being a mixture of all the culture. No, it's a matter of like each track is authentic and distinctive according to that specific culture or a specific region. But the collective is like a smorgasbord of the different cultures of each region in its own right, so that people get an introduction to them, so that you can hear that fast kind of tempo joints from Southern and Central Africa. The names of it even escape me at the moment, because I know the sounds of it. When I was in Africa, I love that. I was getting stacks of CDs, inexpensive, and like it's just like that energy and that positivity, because it's a different vibe from the hip hop boom boom boom. That's like hardcore in kind of like in many ways overcompensatingly masculine. It's like if you have a soft thing, then it's like, oh, what is that? So it's like in Africa, it's like, yo, you just dancing, that's legit. And so there's the slow tempo stuff, and there's the hardcore stuff as well, and there's the quiet stuff, and then there's just the drum and everything else like that. So having a CD that features all of that, and then you can do a volume 2, a volume 3. And build from that. So anyways, it could be called the drum just itself, or the drum path, or whatever. But that's another project, and so that's part of the blessing and curse. I'm an idea dude, and I share what I can. So there's that. So one other thing I'll share, and I've shared this before, actually in a recent convo. So I have a recent convo with my kinfolk at What's Out Media about my preceding boss, Randall Robinson, Trans-Africa Forum, many years ago. To be honest, I speak to him very briefly. I talked with the staff. I was further on the totem pole, but He is the chief of the operations Trans-Africa Forum that I work for when I'm in law school. He passes away recently, so peace and blessings be with him, and condolences and well-being to his family, and healing and strength. And this is one of his books. It's actually a novel, and I've read I think 4 or 5 novels in the past 20 years, because again I deal primarily with ancient joints, and then otherwise just like factual joints, actual life joints. So novels is further investment for me. Now that being said, one novel that I've read is written by my collegial brethren, my roommate in law school, who travels Africa with me. He writes a novel. I read that. Then another sisterin, his name is Dax Ross. Another sisterin, Heidi DeRoe, who's mixed heritage, writes a novel. I read that. Another brother, Paulo Colo, have yet to meet in life, but writes a very popular novel called The Alchemist. I read that. This is the fourth joint that I read. Or I'm actually in the process of reading. So I just began this upon hearing the news recently, in recent weeks. So and one of the reasons why I particularly read this is Makeda. Other kinfolk know that name by... Sometimes I pause, yo. Sometimes I pause. Sheba, Queen of Sheba. But this is the Amharic translation. So, anyways, I am genuinely interested in hearing this, because it's a narrative about it's a novel, so it's a fictional representation of actual life. And an elder uncle here in the Cuyahoga area communicates to me, who's very Afrocentric and is an African librarian, and he communicates to me in a recent conversation, recent years, how he actually prefers the fiction to the actual biographic in many ways, because the biographic written word tends to be dry and removed from the actuality. So it's talking about the tribes, it's talking about the civilization additionally, and I champion that. But at the same time, it's difficult for a person to immerse oneself and imagine and experience that when the writing itself is just very kind of like sterile, of just like factual. Here it is, da 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 da. And if there is some emotion, it might be just like, yeah, and that was da 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 da. And so again, it's not like getting immersed into the feeling, like the griot of the storyteller. So he says that the fiction writers tend to have a better ability of conveying the actual life experience through the medium of a novel, rather than through just a historic fact listing. So, and that's what seems like Uncle Randall Robinson does in this. The novel is about a boy who has a grandmother who's blind, and kind of like aloof, like a lot of the rest of the family just interacts very little with her, but he has this occasion of interacting with her much. And then so she divulges to him that she experiences like these very vivid dreams, and in these dreams, like she experiences what her life is in previous points of this earthly realm, particularly in Africa, and particularly as Makeda. And so in this, Randall Robinson brings, as I understand, his experience of years of working in Africa as a lobbyist, as a diplomat, and additionally as an activist, traveling through the deserts and the roads and the hallways of Africa, and learning about the histories and additionally of all the different peoples. And so he infuses that knowledge in the narratives of history into the dreams of the grandmother, the grandma in this novel. So it's factual in terms of the references that are communicated, but it's just shared through the medium of fiction. And so that might just also be just like the contemporary translation of the African experience in general, because different cultures have a different way of registering the actual life experience and then the trans-temporal experience, like where lines are drawn between the dreaming and the awakened state. And again, it's similar to like how difficult it is to definitively say like what is the Mahabharata, what is the Ramayana? Is that a fiction, or even like what is the Odyssey or otherwise? It's like in certain cultural things, like, okay, that's fake and this is actual. This actually happened. That didn't actually happen. But wait a minute, it does actually happen. So, but what's the nature of that? And so again, each culture draws those lines in different ways. And so when in the English Western parlance of something is a novel, oh, that just didn't happen. But at the same time, wait a minute, hold up. There's some actuality there. So I have to like pause to see if I'm like being skewed in my presentation of this as a way of like essentially selling it or whatever. That's not my intention. But even if it's not my intention, am I effectively doing that? In one way or other, we're doing everything, so I can't deny that. But once I say that, then I consider, well, how genuine is that articulation? Enough to just keep it as it is. So, done deal. And that being said, that's much what I have to share. The bee is probably buzzing on someplace else and not thinking too much about me at all. The soleil has yet to get towards even the closeness of the midday, but that being said, I have yet to partake of parchment. So I got greens. We got greens, collard greens, turnip greens, mustard greens, kale greens. We got greens. And I'll say this. I'll tell you where I got greens. And I'll tell you where I got greens without telling you exactly where I got greens. And then for those who know, those who speak to speak, they will know where I got the greens. Because I done told the kinfolk where I got the greens. I said, what's up? I said, shalom, shalom, and oda, oda. So, that being said, here's where I got the greens. It's a story I share. Now, I'm rolling. I'm driving with dear, beautiful, holy kinfolk on the way towards the grocery store where I get the greens. And in front of our vehicle, there is another vehicle that's bumping. And I don't listen to a lot of the contemporary music because, again, like, I didn't listen to young knuckleheads when I was a young knucklehead, so I'm less inclined towards listening to young knuckleheads today, even when young knuckleheads got legit things to say and got legit skills and talent and intelligence in saying it. I just don't listen to much of that because, I've seen it, I've been it, I've done it, I know it. I've learned better, and so it's like I'm not inclined towards getting enveloped in and investing in hearing that as well. I can share with you some things if you got something new to say, but like it's like if you've taken a class and if you've taken like some arithmetic class and like you learn how to do 1 + 2 is 3. Okay, cool. And then you go on to the next one. 2 × 2 is 4. 6 × 6 is 36. All right. And then you get into the next one, you get division. And then you get to roots and exponents. And then you get into algebra. And then you get into geometry, the Pythagorean theorem. And then you get into trigonometry and analytical geometry and calculus. And then you get into like econometrics. And then, I'm just talking about myself right here, but so you get into these different levels of math, and then some cat comes up to you and be like, yo, 1 + 2 is 3, what's up? I'm like, yo, I did 1 + 2 is 3. I know that, and I respect you, and I see that. I see like you got skills that like you write it fast, and you might calculate it much faster than I do. But I've done 1 + 2 is 3, and right there, no, 2 + 2 is not 6. You might want to correct that right there. I'm like, no, 2 + 2 is 6. Okay, if you want to do that, okay, that's you. But we're staying on this one. But so when I hear that, I'm like, okay, 1 + 2 is 3. I heard that. Okay. First of all, lots of cats aren't bumping 1 + 2 is 3. A lot of cats are bumping 2 + 2 is 5. So I'm like, I'm not listening to that right now. So regardless of anyway, all right. So I said enough of that. I don't discount cats. I listen to all cats. I'm willing to listen if cats are willing to sit down. But if they just come up to me like, yo, listen to this, I'm like, hold up. I'm not telling you to come up and listen to me. So what you want me to listen for you for? Or what you expect me to listen to you for? Because I'm not coming up bumping like, yo, listen to this. Come on. and I've already listened to, I've already heard what you're sharing. So well, come on, just off just basic principles. So, anyways, now that being said, I respect, because young kinfolk know things that I don't know. I do. I recognize. I respect that. I game recognize game, but like when you coming at me like that, it's like yo, nah. I know where that game leads. Anyway, sorry. We're ready to chop it up with all brethren with mutual respect. We're ready. We're willing. We've been doing it. We continue doing it for years and years and years. That's how we continue doing it, because we do that, and we're known for doing that. By the grace of God, all thanks and praise to the Most High. That's what we do. But just when cats is just like, yo, come on, come on, man, come on. So now that being said, cats need to bump. Cats need to like vent, and I'm not hating on cats who bump and this and the other, their rides or whatever else. That's not what it's about. Because I bump up. I got my drum right there, and I bump it organic style. I bump it like old school style, the tribal style. So I don't hate on the bumps, but when I hear and I don't hate on the delivery. I don't hate on like the new like flows and everything else. Like I tried to freestyle with brethren from Nigeria this past year when I was in the refugee camp in Denmark, and I was like, I couldn't even do the freestyle because he was into like the news, and I was like, whoa, hold up. My brother tells me like I rap like an old head, like ba-doom ba-da-bop ba-doom boom ba-dop ba-da-bump ba-da-bop ba-dop bop ba-dop. Now it's not that exaggerated, but it's like it is different. It's slower, and it's like not as like layered or whatever else. It's comparatively simplistic. So cats has got new flows and then respect. But again, like what you talking about, because that's the important thing. So anyways, respect that, want that, welcome that, but like in a proper way. Now, all that being said, as we're driving and going towards the grocery store, we hear the bumps, and again, like we're not bumping. We don't got music playing or whatever else. We're just having conversations. And when the bumps come out, it's okay. We gotta like focus on what we're thinking about now at that point, because it is different. Like if some cat comes just to you like blah 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 blah, it's like hold up, I'm trying to think right now, and now I gotta like deal with this. So I ain't hating, because I know cats is penned up. They got a vent. We gotta hear the drum. We gotta feel it. I know that. But at the same time, when we do that and we're in an enclosed environment with others around us, it's an imposition. And so there's a lot of impositions. The roadways are an imposition. The lampposts are an imposition. All the night lights that obscure the massive stars that are around us, that's an imposition. So it's not just about music. It's not just about decibels. There's all different types of impositions that people place upon each other in the city, in the Babylonian experience. And so it's not exclusive to African cats bumping their music in their rides. Not hating on that exclusively, and not hating on that at all, just calling it out. But that's not the only thing to call out. So we recognize that. And we recognize how black kinfolk and black men have been extracted from the drum and continue to be so. So that there's the resorting to the electronic versions of it rather than the authentic, homegrown, ancestral versions of it. Because when cats know that, the system is done. But in the meanwhile, at that moment on the road, as we hear the bumps and everything else like that, and I can hear some flow. I'm like, okay, you know what, that style I can appreciate, but at the same time, we're doing our own thing right now. And so my response at that moment, this is going to be the whatever it's called, the thumb thing. Hey. My response at that moment is it revealed I'm just being narcissistic and talking to myself? Congratulations. My response at that moment is this. We're on the road. We're about to hit an intersection, which is the road where the grocery store is on. And when I see the name of the road and I hear the bumps in front of me, and I conjure my own background of frame of references of hip-hop, and additionally seeing the name of the road, I just have the occasion of saying aloud with the kinfolk in the ride who are less familiar with the reference I'm about to make, and it's this: my posse's on Broadway. Hey. So there it is. Meanwhile, get in the water. It's the water. I would do some type of music thing, but then this whole thing would be blocked. Indeed. And that's to the detriment of the internet itself. So, because the culture has got to flow. The culture has got to flow. And there are those that are on the path of the petri dish, of just becoming petri dishes. And for those who have that interest, that's people's prerogative. Petri dishes connected with advanced circuitry, and additionally, some kinfolk ain't about that life. So, one way or another, the culture's got to flow. And with all the obstructions of copyrights and protections and blockages and VPNs and all this other stuff, the culture's got to flow. Otherwise, like, the cats who are obstructing the flow make themselves irrelevant, redundant, unnecessary, excessive, in extractions, because the culture's got a life of its own, as the artists know, as kinfolk know. The culture's got a flow of its own. The culture's got a life of its own, and it happens just like Brother Trudell shares in the documentary. Yo, it's preposterous. It's ludicrous. It's arrogant to think that humanity has the capability of destroying the earth, and additionally, humanity has the propensity of destroying itself. The earth is going to handle its business one way or the other. So, for those in humanity who want some kind of sustainability for this generation and for continuing generations, it's beneficial to be mindful of alignment and further loyal and dutiful to the alignment with the nature and the harmony, and additionally, rather than to the man-made methodology systems, and additionally that are destroying itself, because we're in the ebbs and flows of that water dance of civilizations. And that's the nature, and that's the knowledge for those who stay true to themselves and to the oneness. All thanks and praise to the Most High, Elohim Jah. Honor and respect to His Majesty Haile Selassie. Honor and respect to Her Majesty Waizara Manen. Blessed love and peace, Rastafari.